Is this good framing?
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name's Stephanie Weber. I'm a writer for Mr. Skin, and I'm here today with Mr. Skin himself and actress Diane Franklin. Hello, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you,
Stephanie? Thanks so much.
I'm good. Well, we really want to talk today about the documentary Skin, History of Nudity in Film. And Diane was great in the documentary. You agreed to be in it. We definitely want to know first and foremost what you thought when you were approached about talking in a documentary about movie nudity.
Well, I mean, let's face it, obviously, the first thing I thought was it was going to be exploitive. Okay, that's the first thing, because I mean, it's, you know, it sounds like it's going to be.
Right.
But, you know, that, I mean, that was my first gut punch thought. In which case I would not have done it. Absolutely not. No way. But then because it was the history of nudity, the history, I suddenly went, wait a minute. This is something bigger than just something that's exploitive. And honestly, like, I really just trusted my gut, because for me, I just thought that it's such an important thing to be a part of. So that's why I said, you know what, I got to do this. And I remember I talked to Danny Wolf, and he was, you know, he asked me.
Yeah, the director, yes.
The director, yeah. And he was such a nice guy, and he just was so sincere. And he, you know, he just promised me that he swore to me that it was going to be something that was, that it was something that I actually thought it was going to be, you know, which was really an important part of history, American history, and something, obviously, look, nudity is going to happen. It's going to go on, and for good reasons too. Like, I mean, obviously, I know that when people, you know, watch the things I've been in, they learned a lot, you know. I mean, I can't say that, you know, when they were like 12-year-olds saying, you know, I watched you, you know, in those movies, and I said, well, where was your mother? What was up with that? What was going on there? But honestly, truthfully, we learn so much from nudity in films. I mean, it's sort of like where we get our first crushes. It's where we learn our first, you know, we just learn about things we don't know in life. Right. And believe me, you know, I mean, after 18, it's important to know. After 21, you got to know this. I mean, it's important, you know. So I think the truth of it for me was when I was approached with the idea of being in the documentary, I thought, this is a golden moment. I got to be in it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And Stephanie, I wanted to say in that regard, you know, being the executive producer of this, I had known for the 21 years that I've been running MrSkin.com. I knew that they had never done a documentary on the history of nudity in the movies. But until I hooked up with Paul Fishbein, the co-executive producer, and Danny, the director, and put this team together, I had some great writers from Mr. Skin help with writing the documentary. My biggest concern, Diane, it truly was that we do all this work, put our heart and soul into this for 2 years, and it would come out and everyone would think, you know, hey, this is a boob fest, it's exploitive. And even with best intentions, it's easy to skew that way, easy to fall into, you know, that exploitation. But I think the thing that's made me the most happy, especially in these last 2 weeks, is actual reviews are coming out from Variety and Hollywood Reporter and CNN and Yahoo.
Amazing reviews.
Amazing. But
like, you get it. Thank you.
Well, but most importantly, they're saying, hey, listen, let's face it, there's over 100 nude scenes in this 2 hours, women, male, female. It's no question there's a ton of nudity. But I think because we gave voice to women, whether they're critics, scholars, film industry veterans, you know, the head of the MPAA, whoever we were interviewing, we gave voice to women, and I think that was very important. And the reviewers are saying, geez, how did they pull this off where they could have all that nudity, yet it didn't feel exploitive? And that, to me, is the thing I'm most proud of about the movie.
Yeah, it felt really educational watching it, and you realize just how much, like you said, Diane, how much that you learn when you've seen these nude scenes before, and how much the movie is actually about censorship and acceptance of bodies and things like that. And something that I thought you said in the documentary that was so thought-provoking is when you described your nude scene, you said that you went from being an actress to an artist. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. I'm really glad you brought that up. By the way, I just also have to piggyback on Jim's point in that, he did give voice to actresses.
Right.
And everybody, all actresses do nudity for a different reason, and I think that it's important to understand that we're people and that we actually do these things, and it's not just objects. And so, like, yes, you can enjoy watching someone doing nudity, but remember they're people, and that's a really important thing. And I think that's one of the things that we're going around and trying to remind people that, and everyone, it's just everybody has to want to and agree to do it. No one should be forced into something like this, but for me, I was very comfortable because my parents were European, and not to say that I wasn't nervous. Now, obviously, it's not like actresses go, oh, please let me take my clothes off, please, it's not happening, but it is, there's something empowering about it. And so here's what I wanted to say about from turning from an actor to an artist, meaning before I did it, there was a part of me that was very insecure. And I think I felt like, I didn't know a lot of things about acting. And, one of the things about being an actor is that you need to be real. And when I did nudity, suddenly I went to an area where I was just completely vulnerable and me. Like there was nothing, I don't even know, I can't even explain the fake, but it was just, I had no boundaries now. It was all me. And it's funny. I didn't even realize it, but I felt much more comfortable acting. And after that, like no matter what scene I did, I just felt very comfortable and much more confident. Now, the funny thing about that is that I didn't realize there were a lot of other actors that I worked with that were very nervous. And I was very surprised because whether they did nudity or not, whether it was something like an intimate scene or something, I was surprised because maybe they had done a lot of work in their resume, but they hadn't walked through that door. Mm-hmm. And when you walk through the door of nudity, there's a sense of you don't have to, you're looking at acting and film and performance in a bigger way, and you just look at it in an art form. You're looking at what is the point of this in the story, which is one of the things that, I turned down nudity for films that were to me exploitive. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that they were wrong for other actresses to do, but for me, it needed to be a part of the story. And yes, I do know that when you go see a movie, one of the things about it during my time in the 80s, when it wasn't on the internet, and you see it all the time, anytime you want, nudity was definitely, you had to go to the movies to see nudity. Right. It was not HBO. It was not on TV. And to do it was a big, I don't know if we'd say sacrifice, but it was definitely a big choice, and you had to get up and go to the movie theaters. And I understand from a producer's point of view that you put nudity in films to get people to go see those movies because it's not going to be shown, on TV. You needed to get the audience out of their house and into the theaters. And I get that. Mm-hmm. But I also think that it's really important for the people who are actors, who are performing, to be treated with respect, let there be rules, and for me, their rules were followed. There were, my information was in contracts. It was just interesting to see that that was part of it. But as an actress, I did feel much more like an artist. I felt like I could test the boundaries. Mm-hmm. And certainly in America, it's funny,
Right. I love that in the documentary when people talk about the American films and nudity versus the European films and nudity. It's so interesting. Your parents were European, so you kind of have that mindset.
Nudity for when I say European, is that nudity is beautiful. This is a very, very big difference. And in America, you don't usually hear those words together. You hear like exploitive or like naked or like, I don't know. There's just like, it's more like, it's not the association isn't beautiful. And I think that's very bizarre because in America, like there's so many people who do watch nudity and it's considered, I guess, only pornography. And I'm not saying, I think I have to clarify this. I'm not saying that like, okay, I understand under 18 and over 18. Like I understand that, you know, and I think that's really good. And I think it's really need the clarification. And if anything, you know, just the restrictions for people to be able to see things. I mean, I remember, you know, when you're a kid and you know, if somebody wanted to go see a movie and it was rated R, you had to get somebody to take you or some people would sneak in, right? Remember?
Yeah. You buy a ticket for a PG-13 movie and then you sneak into the R.
Right. But today, you just turn the internet on and there it is. So there's a big difference. I mean, my gosh, you know, Jim, you must know, like from when we were growing up to today, the access of it is so much easier. I mean, it's kind of strange in America. And then yet there's this kind of conservative look about it. So it is full of discussion. I mean, I really think that that's why I did this documentary, because I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah. And Diane, you and I are like almost the exact same age. Stephanie's a lot younger than us, but yeah, right. Well, when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, there was ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that was pretty much it. And then all of a sudden, cable TV came around, and I had HBO and Showtime, and I had all this nudity in my house, and I was like, you know, in high school. So you're at that age, you're going out of your mind, and all of a sudden there's these drive-in movies from the 70s, the blaxploitation movies, the Italian sex comedies with full nudity in your home. And people today can't understand that with the internet and cell phones and everything else. And I always wonder, I mean, I didn't plan on becoming Mr. Skin or starting this website. I know, I saw that. I read about that too. It was like, you know, it's like everything else. I was at a bar and a business was born. But I always wonder if I grew up today in today's thing with the access to the internet and access, you know, to phones, go on YouTube, do whatever you have to do. I don't know if I would have I don't want to say, you know, I don't know if I'd have the same love of cinema or those movies. Cause like you point out, you had to go to the theater. You had to actually make an effort to go see some of these movies that were featured in our documentary. Whereas now, it's literally you pick up your phone and you can watch it in 5 seconds sitting at a table with friends, you know. And it's you're in line in a supermarket. Okay, let's just Yes, I always wonder if I just grew up at the perfect time to end up being what I became in my life, you know.
And there was an element of innocence then too, you know. I mean, there was an element of thoughtfulness and I don't know, you would watch things and it meant a lot to you. And you know, again, you couldn't put rewind. I mean, it's something simple as that. You couldn't watch something. I remember when VHS came. And by the way, the other thing is, you know, when I did these films, I never thought someone would be able to rewind and watch it again.
Or freeze frame it. Yeah. Or freeze frame it.
That's an interesting thought for sure.
I mean, when I did it, I mean, talk about innocence, you know, I thought, I mean, honestly, Last American Virgin, I thought, will this film ever even be made? Because there were a lot of films that would be made, but then they'd never get to the big screen. And that was all it could do. It couldn't go onto TV. There was no VHS. So if it didn't make it to the big screens, it was gone. So,
I'm sorry. And if it even made it to a theater in the very early 80s or late 1970s, you're thinking, okay, whoever saw it in the theater, it was fleeting, it was gone, and they'd never see it again, right?
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And what are they going to do in a movie theater? I don't want to think about it.
No. It's the dark. You can't see it. Well, even a title like Last American Virgin it's such a salacious title, and it was one of the first 80s teen sex comedies. What did you think when you were told, hey, do you want to audition for Last American Virgin?
No, actually, to tell you the truth, I actually refused to go. I refused to go because I was taking my chemistry exam at NYU, my midterm. And I said, my manager called me and said, you know, you have this audition. And I'm like, what? No, I'm not going. Absolutely not. My chemistry exam is more important. And then I go to my chemistry exam, and it was the first time that I was a freshman, and I go to look at the exam and I think, I've got a better chance of getting a lead in a film than I do acting.
Wow.
And I was like, well, that's it. And I ran up to the audition the same day. I just checked all the answers and you know, and the rest is history. But it is true. Like, you know, obviously the title was what, you know, it made me, you know, is it pornography? What is this? You know?
Right.
But honestly, when I got that script and I looked at it and I went, this is like, I could feel the role, and I was like, I could make this good. And I knew that part, you know, that movie's tone is half and half.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it,
okay.
I don't want to spoil it, but it leads you in with this sexual thing, and then you learn about life. I mean, a lot of it.
with the saddest ending in the history of teen sex comedies, that the ending of that is so brutal. And
you still remember it today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
just,
if you didn't have that ending, we wouldn't be watching it or thinking about it.
Right.
Today.
Yeah.
Did you get backlash for, you know, for being the lead in that movie and then having it end the way it does? I don't want to give anything away, even though spoilers for 30 years later. But
well, it's very educational. People should see it. I think it's very educational for younger
right.
guys. Yeah, also women too. Like what's going on, and you know, make some choices. Watch your choices. But when it first came out, I didn't hear anything because guess what? There was no internet.
Right.
There was no way for me to get information. It was only years later that I found out people were booing me at movie theaters. Or at drive-ins, they were yelling biatch, you know, like there was like, I was like, whoa. And then later on when I saw it, you know, as an adult, I was like, or an older adult,
right.
I was like, yeah, they should be. Cause I was like, yeah, I am awful, you know? So, but then I redeemed myself in other films. So,
oh, for sure. and, you know, just, in the documentary, there's a lot of the actresses talk about what it's like on set to film a nude scene. Do you remember what it was like on set for you? Were you scared out of your mind? I mean, how did you approach that?
Well, I will say this, I do have a couple of books. And my first book, you can, actually, I have two books. One is on Amazon and they go into deeper detail about it.
Oh, great.
But I'm glad I actually brought that up because if you look up Diane Franklin books on Amazon, and you will see a book called The Excellent Curls, not Adventures, but Curls of the Last American French Exchange Babe of the 80s. That's
right.
Which is great. But that one is my focus on Virgin, and it tells some amazing, never before explained and stories. And also it shows some photos that you'll never see again. But I will say this, I had a very positive experience doing it, and it was something that then it was my first nude scene, so I was very nervous.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, who wouldn't be, right? So
right.
You don't know. And so I will say this, I was also very surprised. It really has to do with the director and how things are handled. And everything was in my contract and everything. There was no surprises. So it was actually, I have to say, funny. Funny.
I'm glad it was overwhelmingly funny. Were you nervous about your friends or family at all seeing it?
Well, that's another thing too. You know, I would never have done nudity in the first place if it wasn't okay with the family around me, my family members. When I actually brought it up to my family, they said, you know, my parents were European, so they were very much like nudity is fine, but you know, violence is not. You know, they were not happy about it, because that's actually more of an American kind of perspective in a way. You know, we see a lot of violence, so they were not worried about it. And again, my parents were a lot older than me; like they would be like grandparents to most people.
Oh. They
had me later in life, but the other part of it was that they said it's your choice, it's your life, and you know, it's up to you. And that's what I really think is important for actors who choose to do this, is that remember that it's your choice. You will have to live with it. I mean, that's something I wouldn't have said when I was younger, when I did it.
Right.
Really, because I could not conceive that it would continue, you know, throughout history. You know, I would still be talking about it today. But so I do think you need to think about it. But also I think that it's, you know, obviously it creates opportunity for you when you need it, or, you know, what you want. And also it's not for everybody. Nudity is not for everyone. You have to have a certain maturity in you. Don't do it frivolously. Do it with, heart, and commit to it. And I don't know, to me, again, I was always saying, it takes you from being a child to a woman,
Yeah.
and I think that, do it as a woman, don't do it as a child, because then you're being, then you are exploited,
Right.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Kind of going off about those perspectives where you were saying, you had no idea you'd be talking about this now. Still, you were in all these other fantastic films that have become cult classics too, like Better Off Dead and Bill and Ted. Did you have any idea that those movies would not only still be talked about, but get sequels now? I
know. Well, the other thing too is actually, I was very surprised that today this is so fascinating to me. So the reason I got Better Off Dead was that Savage Steve Holland saw Last American Virgin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I would never have thought that he would have seen that.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, also I just did a movie called Amityville Murders, and the director had
Mm-hmm.
seen Amityville 2, The Possession, and where I did some nudity there as well. So what I found interesting for me was that people in America watch everything.
Yeah.
And then they choose what they like. And so it was really, Better Off Dead, I think, was the first film, although I did television before, was the first film that I got that didn't have nudity. And that was huge for me. And that was something that that's like the thing, like I don't mind doing nudity, but I also am not just nudity. And I think that's really important. We want to be able to, as actors, say, we can do anything. That's at least from my perspective.
Definitely. And when you just said that about nudity, did you find that you were being offered a lot of nude roles after you had already done a nude scene?
Yes, because once people find out that you will do nudity, they think, well, that person doesn't have a problem doing it.
Right.
But that's not necessarily true. Again, actresses are not going, oh, goody, more nudity. I will say that some actresses, honestly, I always say people have a choice, but some actresses don't feel they have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the confidence. They don't feel like they have another skill.
Yeah.
They may not have a competitive name, or they may, I worked 9 years in the business before I was offered Virgin, and that was a lead in a film. And honestly, I worked in television, commercials, soap opera, theater, but I could not get a lead role in anything because I didn't have a big name. I was maybe a too pretty, and I say that whatever, because there's a lot of beautiful women, for playing the best friend. I wasn't a character actress. So I think that my ability to get roles, it was a strange box that I was in. And so it opened up the door for me. And I have to say, I think it opens up the door. I'm not saying that you have to do nudity to get your big break, but I will say I was surprised at the breaks that I got that didn't have to do with nudity afterwards.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because when directors see you doing something like that, they feel like you're relaxed, that you are vulnerable, open, and that they can, it's easier to work with you. I don't know. Or maybe they're just attracted to you, and I don't know that either. But either way, I think that it's, as long as everything's done respectfully and tastefully, and, I think it's great.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because at working here anyway, we notice that a lot, where it seems like the majority of nude scenes for a lot of actresses are early on in their career, and then they get more and more serious work out of it. Don't you think that's true, Skin?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also one of the things that came through in the documentary that, quite frankly, 2 years ago when I started this, I didn't really realize, was this thing with the intimacy coordinators they have now on the sets of movies and television shows. And, what they're there for is to make sure the director and producers follow what they promised, that, because as Diane's aware, and actresses, especially from other eras, you'd show up expecting one thing, and then all of a sudden the whole movie hinges on you doing this one extra great nude scene, and then you have all this pressure on yourself. Well, these intimacy coordinators have given a lot of have helped to empower actresses today, and it's in stark contrast to what you see with, Diane's situation, Mariel Hemingway, Pam Grier. I mean, we talked to Linda Blair, Chained Heat, and I think of, they were kind of on an island many times. They were on their own. And it's one of the good things you see in this documentary. One of the good that's come out of this in the history of nudity in film is that women have choices now. When they do a nude scene, they can feel good about it because it's what they signed up to do. And that's a very important thing.
That's exactly right. And I want to even point out something. I actually just did a film that there was a girl who was supposed to do nudity in it. She came to me and she was like, I've never done nudity before. And I was like, I talked to her about it. And you know what? When she was shooting the film, she said, I can't do it. She was so upset she couldn't do it. And the director was like, okay, fine. She was on the set. And so it was interesting. I mean, look, they could have fired her and canceled and, gotten somebody else. And in that particular case, she, just couldn't emotionally do it. So there are times where actresses don't feel comfortable when they really try to, but they just don't feel it in the moment. And, I can't say, I think, again, it's everybody's choice and where you're at. And I will say, again, you're right. Obviously it's so important to have everything set. The biggest problem you don't want is something to be sprung on you as an actor. Yeah. Actors are very brave to come and do nudity. It is a brave thing. And it is not a casual thing. It is not a, hey, I might as well. I don't know. It is like it is very detailed and it is very specific. So I think that it's incredible today. Obviously a hashtag Me Too movement is promoting this, is that not just women, but also men, we all who are actors have the rights to be, to decide what we want to do and to have backup on that. And then, to be able, then we can relax and then we can do our work, right?
Absolutely. You had mentioned a second ago too about you had filmed the Amityville murders recently. Is there anything else that you've been up to recently that you can tell us about?
Oh my gosh. So first of all, I have to say, the reason I'm actually back in the entertainment business is because of my daughter. Her name is Olivia De Laurentiis, and she has a Snapchat show called Apocalypse Goals. And so originally, Olivia, at a very young age, started doing films. And then I was like, okay, well, if you need a mom or grandmother or whatever, I'll play a role, right? And so she does comedy. So I started doing that. And from that, I guess, people started hearing that I was working, and I don't know, I just started getting opportunities. So I did Amityville Murders and then a movie called Wally Got Wasted. Those are now, you can get them, you can see them on Amazon.
Yeah, I believe those are
a funny scene in Wally Got Wasted. But I have 4 films that are coming out. 4.
Wow.
And so I want people to follow me on, if they don't mind, on my media. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, because I have all these things coming out. Plus, I've got Bill and Ted's is coming out. I'm not in it, but I have to say, I was whatever. But I will say, come on, guys. So, but I will say that, it's just a lot is happening. And so I've got a couple of thrillers out, and I'm still working, so I'm excited to work. I'm glad I'm acting again. And I love the variety of roles. So
don't forget you're a star in Skin, A History of Nudity in the movies. So that's the hottest thing out there right now. So very good.
You know what? At my age, let me just tell you something. Being here, this is great. I have to say, at my age, being on your show is excellent. 2 to the excellent.
Yeah. No, well, it's great for us too. And for me, for what I do for a living, obviously, I've always been a big fan of your work, and to get, number one, to have you in the movie was amazing. But now to we had never spoken. You were always dealing with Danny and Paul out in LA. I live in Chicago, and it's great to
Go Chicago.
Yeah, it's great to have this communication and get to meet you in person. And I really appreciate you doing this for us.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah,
thank you. It was really nice to meet you and talk to you today.
Thank you, Stephanie, and you're awesome as well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, take care. Thanks so much, Diane.
Alrighty.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone.